Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast, where we talk about how to be a more successful multifamily investor with a focus on using technology to boost your business. And now your host, Todd Heitner.
Welcome to the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. My guest today is Adam Gower. Adam is an authority in content marketing for the real estate industry. He has more than 30 years and $1.5 billion of transactional experience in commercial real estate finance and investment. He runs a digital marketing agency specializing in supporting real estate investors with their capital raising. Our topic today is attract investors on autopilot with a digital marketing funnel. Today, Adam enthusiastically shares some great insights on this topic, including things like the power of a digital marketing funnel or pipeline, how to maximize your content output to attract more investors, and how to create a social media bait plume, as Adam calls it. Also, how to make the most of tracking tools like Google Analytics. So let's get right into the interview. Okay, well, today I have Adam Gower with me. So Adam, how are you today?
Fabulous. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, glad to get you on today. So for our audience that's maybe not familiar with you, can you tell us a little bit about like an overview of what your company, Gower Crowd, does for multifamily?
You mean there's someone not familiar with me? Just kidding. Right. So what we do, my background, ever so briefly, is I am a real estate investment and finance guy. I have been for several hundred years, basically. I mean, since the year dot. And I basically reinvented myself about 6 years ago. I'd done an enormous amount of note sales, believe it or not, during the last downturn, about around $1 billion of real estate collateralized note workouts and sales. It's quite a mouthful. And so I did very well during the downturn. When the market turned up, I started investing. I stopped, all that good distress stuff went away. And I started to do some investments in seed startups, Todd. And with these startups, they were talking a foreign language. Anyone that listens to my podcast is going to hear me say this 1,000 times. So apologies to those that have heard me say this already. But I started investing and they were talking a foreign language. And that foreign language was the language of digital marketing, online marketing. It's never been anything that in real estate we've ever used, right? Until the Jobs Act of 2012 and subsequent promulgation of the laws a couple of years later, 2014, 15 or so. And when that happened, there was a merger between real estate syndication, which is what I've done all my life, and digital marketing, content marketing. And so at that point, I decided to learn how to do that. It occurred to me that this was like the most amazing opportunity to raise money online instead of having to do it in person, right? It's basically 1000x your efforts, right? Instead of meeting people in person every time. And so what I have done is built a business around that. We build full stack digital marketing, content marketing systems for real estate investors or developers who want to raise money so they can buy more deals and build their portfolio. We build out the systems that help them raise money. That's it in about far too long it took me to explain that, but that's what we do.
Okay, awesome. And so you mentioned how like some changes that took place with digital marketing. And I guess that was with the SEC. Can you what impact does that have then on your digital marketing efforts?
Okay, so prior to 2012, and the SEC just promulgated the laws. It was Congress that actually passed the Act, Jobs Act, 2012. Prior to that, well, it's actually quite technical, Todd, but basically what it did was it threw the doors open to marketing. The 1933 Securities Act, just a little history briefly, basically shut down the opportunity of small companies it prohibited them from going to the general public to raise money other than through an IPO. You had to go through an IPO, but there was an exception, and that exception, very simply spoken or speaking, was that you can still raise money without doing an IPO, as long as it's from somebody you know. right? So you have to have a pre-existing relationship with them, basically. And I'm oversimplifying, but the 2012 Jobs Act reversed that and said it's okay to put up a website that says, come and invest with me, right? Find out more about me because I've got deals you want to invest in. And so that just threw the door open to real estate sponsors, developers, to do exactly that. I mean, they can have websites that don't just say, here's my name and number and a nice pretty picture, right, of me and one of my buildings. It actually says, here, learn about me because you can actually invest in my deals. So that was really the switch that was thrown in 2012.
Okay.
And you know what? By the way, it was never intended for real estate. I wrote a book, of course, I'll put it back on my shelf now, called Leaders of the Crowd, where I actually interviewed people in the White House and in Congress and lobbyists and early adopters, etc. And it was the Jobs Act, stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups. Congress never imagined for a moment, it didn't occur to anybody that real estate would benefit. But because real estate syndications are always structured with an LLC, some kind of corporate structure, you're selling shares. And if you're selling shares, that's basically securities. And so it fell under the purview of the Jobs Act. And real estate has become the single biggest beneficiary of that act, even though it was never, ever intended for real estate.
Okay, interesting. Wow. Okay. And you touched on something earlier. You talked about like the benefits of doing digital marketing as opposed to just offline stuff, like the way people used to do it. So what would you say, what are the advantages then of doing digital marketing with like real estate syndication?
That's a really good question. And the simple answer to that question is you can do 1,000 times the same amount of work in the same time. It's really as simple as that. And I'll explain what I mean by that. For anybody who has raised money online, who has raised money for real estate, like I have, through my entire career, it involves figuring out how to get introductions, right? So calling a lawyer, calling a wealth manager, an accountant, joining a country club is the classic, the cliche. You join the fancy country club, you get to meet people, you go to charity events, you spend all your life networking, number one. So that's a lot of time taken. Secondly, then when you get a lead, now you got to arrange to meet them. You print out your pitch deck, you produce your pitch deck, you print out, you go meet them. And for an hour, hour and a half, that first meeting, either for lunch or at the country club or in your office, in their office, whatever, you're going to pitch them. You're going to tell them your whole story. They want to know your background, your track record. They want to get to know you, right? That's the first thing. Several years later, they might invest with you, right? Basically, if you're lucky, it might only take a few months for them to invest. Anybody listening, just think about every investor you've got. What was the path that took you to that? The first meeting, the second meeting. I was talking to one guy recently, said, yes, one of my best investors, I actually had to bail his son out of jail. Think of all those crazy things that you've had to do, right? To kind of create this relationship. All right. And that's always been done in person because that has always been the only way you could do it, right? The law said that's how you have to. Now you can speak your background on a video, just like you and I are doing. You can talk your background, you can explain your background, you can tell your story, and you can create a relationship. And you only need to do it once, because then you put it on your website, you put it on social media, and your prospects now discover you because you have what I call this bait plume on social media, which is all your content out there. They discover you and they come and consume all this content that you've produced on your website. Guess what? Now they learn about you. You don't actually ever have to talk to them. They will come to you and put their hand up and say, I would like to invest with you. And the first time you speak to them, they already know you. They already like you. They're inclined to trust you, right? The know, like, and trust classic digital marketing sequence. And all that's left is for you to carry them over the finish line to close the deal. That's the, and therefore the big difference is, instead of having to do it, that same thing every single time you meet a new investor, you only do it one time. And now 1,000 investors or 10,000 or 100,000 can get to know you from one pitch that you make or from one set of content that you make. That's the big difference.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's really powerful because, instead of a one-to-one type of relationship building thing, it's a one-to-many. I mean, lots of people are essentially building a relationship with you, even if you're unaware of them at the moment.
That's exactly right. And it's funny that you say that it's one-to-many. It is one-to-many. From your perspective as a developer raising money, it is one-to-many. Like, my stuff's out there now. I'm probably getting emails from people that have consumed a ton of my stuff, right? And I have no idea who they are. But from their perspective, it's one-to-one. That's very important. They are establishing a relationship with you. And that's why it's so powerful. It's like leveraging your time. It's like duplicating your time and having a kind of a duplicate out there doing all this work for you. Right? It's like that Calvin. Do you remember that Calvin and Hobbes cartoon where Calvin creates a transmogrifier? It has this machine that duplicates himself, and he tries to get himself to go and do his homework and everything. Well, it's the same idea. You can create thousands of you to communicate with prospects. Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's really powerful stuff for sure. And I just want to ask a little bit of something about, I saw something on your website. You have this graphic or this diagram called the investor acquisition system. Can you tell us what that is and kind of walk us through that process? Yes, I sure can. And here's what I would say. Can I mention a page on my website? Is that okay? Yeah. I spend 39 minutes going through that in a workshop, a whiteboard workshop right behind me here. Behind this screen, I've got a whiteboard, and I actually walk you through that diagram. So go to gowercrowd.com/waterfall. Of course, I put completely the wrong URL on that, but that's what it is anyway. It's /waterfall. You'll find it. It's called the whiteboard workshop. But basically, what that is it describes the investor journey, how your ideal investor finds you online, how they consume knowledge about you online, how they travel from social media to your website, how they then interact with your website, how they then put their hand up. And I noticed that this is a primary, by the way, you've got an amazing idea there. Really kudos to you with the lead generation thing that you've got there. But how, right? And the way you step leads up, superb. I'm going to integrate that. It's a really good idea, by the way. But so it's the way that you then grab somebody's name. I'm sorry, the way that an investor then puts their hand up and says, I've read enough about you. I want to know more. Please tell me more. Send me more information. And then eventually how that relationship develops over time until the key moment when you say, invest now, please invest. And at that point, your prospects, and this is what the investor acquisition system does, your prospects are now, you may never have even met them. It's really remarkable how it works. You may have never met them or spoken to them. You may not even know they're out there, right? They might just have popped up on your list. When you say invest now, they are predisposed to investing with you. All that hard work of nurturing a prospect has been done with the investor acquisition system. So when you do say invest now, they're really ready to sign contracts and wire money. So that's in a nutshell what it is. Like I said, if you want to know more, it's there at /waterfall. Okay, thank you. And I know some of our listeners might be familiar with the phrase marketing funnel or digital marketing funnel. Is that kind of similar to what your system is? Or is there a difference? Yeah, it is. It's the exact same thing, except being a real estate guy, I was thinking more in terms of pipeline. That's why I put it horizontal. But basically, yes, it's a funnel, right? So you pour at the top of your funnel. Well, you know what a funnel is, but that's basically what it is. Yeah, it's a very detailed walkthrough of a marketing funnel but one that is tailored to commercial real estate, people raising money online. That's right.
Okay. All right. And could you, I know you said you go through it in more detail on that whiteboard animation, but could you, or not animation, but the
walkthrough. Yeah.
Walkthrough. Yeah. Could you kind of briefly walk us through the journey of a potential investor, like from the time that they first discover you in some way to like the point of investing, like what that, kind of.
Sure.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. When we return, Adam walks us through the journey a new potential investor goes through as they enter your digital marketing funnel and move through it to the point of investing. He also talks about why a digital marketing funnel is 1,000 times more powerful for raising money than traditional ways to get new investors. Plus, Adam shares how he came to have over 3,500 pieces of content to share on social media and how you can do the same to keep attracting new investors. So stay tuned. Do you have a good system for communicating with potential investors from the time they contact you the first time to the point of them making their first investment and beyond? Well, ActiveCampaign is a great tool for email marketing and automation. You can create a series of follow-up emails that each new investor will receive that nudges them toward taking the next step, whether that means booking a call, creating an account in your investor portal, or giving a soft commitment. And it does more than just email marketing. It has CRM functionality too, where you can keep notes on your investors so you have their history with you at your fingertips. We use ActiveCampaign in our business, and I've seen a lot of successful syndicators use it in theirs. You can get more information by going to apartmentinvestorpro.com/AC. That's AC for ActiveCampaign. Just to be transparent, that is an affiliate link, so if you decide to order, we may make a small commission at no extra cost to you. But we're only recommending it because we used it ourselves and we know that it works well. Again, that link is apartmentinvestorpro.com/AC. Could you kind of briefly walk us through the journey of a potential investor, like from the time that they first discover you in some way to like the point of investing, like what that, kind of
Sure.
know what that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is, gosh, it's such a huge subject actually to ask. Let me try and simplify it then.
Yeah.
So your ideal investor is going to self-select. So you start at the widest part of the funnel, which is at social media. In social media, there are tens of billions of people online all the time. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are the primary ones. You can throw Instagram in if you want to as well. But those are your primary ones. LinkedIn is the one that drives the most traffic, typically for us, followed by Facebook, just FYI. But I like to work on Twitter as well, because some people love Twitter. So you might as well, doesn't take any more effort to be there, actually, because everything can be automated. So the first thing that happens is that your content floats on social media. This is what I call your bait plume. Right. So the more content you've got on social media, the more you post, and it's all automated. So don't worry, you don't have to spend all your life on social media. I don't do any on social media myself. And yet I'm on social media all the time. Not personally, but my presence is there.
Right.
So that bait plume attracts somebody. Now, typically, it will take between 6 and 10 times for somebody to see you, your logo or your name, etc., your face, whatever it is, identify as having seen you before they will click through to your website, right? You need familiarity. So that's where it starts. As they're going through their feeds, they see you once, twice, think whatever you're saying, different things. It might pique their interest the first time or not. But after 6 to 10 times, that's enough for them to say, I wonder, this particular message sounds good. And then they come through and land on your website. Now, once they land on your website, you're going to ask them, give me a name and email address with something tempting, right? Some kind of lead generation document, a lead magnet of some sort. It might be a white paper or a case study or an ebook or something like that just entices them to give you their name and email address. So now they've seen you on social media, so they got used to seeing you there. And they started to recognize you as a thought leader. So they come to your website. Now they start consuming more information. By the way, you can track behavior. You can see where people go and what pages they land on, as you well know, and how they travel across your website, et cetera, and how long they spend, et cetera, et cetera. and they consume more information. Eventually they give you their name and email address. Now you can start sending them emails. So now they're seeing you on social media, they're looking at your website. Now you're communicating really directly with them via email. And so this whole cycle establishes a relationship. It's actually, and if you use video for your content as well, which I love to do, I discovered the love of video, having spent 2 years just doing audio when I started podcasting. This is how you develop a relationship. And so that's how your investors will come to get to know you as well. They just get deeper and deeper. Their journey, as they get deeper into knowing you, right, they get to know more about you. So that's it in a nutshell. And I forgot your question, but I hope it was about the investor journey.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, just kind of the journey that people typically go through. And you mentioned one thing that it usually takes 6 to 10 times for someone to see you on social media. I know sometimes people will try something and they'll put an ad up or something like that, and they're like, oh, it didn't work. But do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, well, I guess kind of goes along with what you're saying. I mean, you kind of have to do this repeatedly, right, before you start seeing any results.
Oh yeah, it's the funnest thing. I mean, I enjoy basically you test. So I know it sounds a bit crazy, Todd, but we just did an audit somewhere around, must be now about 3,500 pieces of content. Imagine that rotate constantly on social media. And we can track which piece of content gets the most action. Now, here's an important observation. It's social media, but you're conducting business. And investors don't generally chit chat. Serious investors don't chit chat on social media. They don't make a comment, right? This isn't happy cat videos. This is please give me tens of thousands of dollars postings. Essentially, that's what it is. So this is serious business that you're talking about. So what happens is that people don't necessarily like or comment. It doesn't matter. They're seeing you. You are creating a presence online. And when they travel to your site, you can see which posts are which drive the most traffic. So typically what we will do is we will look and see which posts are performing the best, and then we'll use those to advertise. So those are the ones that we will adapt to go out because we know that those are performing the best. So the bottom line is create content and then test it. It doesn't matter if something fails, fine. There's no failure. What you did was you learned that particular structure doesn't work. So you try something else, and it's a constant process of iteration. It never ends. And it's a lot of fun. It's all data. Yeah, it's a blast, actually.
So you're looking then more for like click-throughs rather than like some kind of engagement with the post itself, like liking or whatever.
Nah, it's not a happy cat video. You know, I mean, it's not social. The action happens on your website. This is why what you do is so important. People will see you on social media, will see you and the more they see you posting intelligent content, and all that content is, by the way, here's a important article about the internal rate of return, or here's an article about cat rates. You have a nice image and a link that takes them back to your website. That's all you want, is a click on that back to your website. You have to have a website. That is your mothership of content. That's where everything resides. If you don't have a website, you don't have anything. It's fundamental. It's the core of everything you do. But then outside of that, you want to drive traffic to it. And that's done on social media. And so people will see you on social media passing through their feed. And the more they see you, the more inclined they're likely to be to click to find out more. I'll give you an example of how this works. I mean, everybody, you know how this works. You, not you, Todd, being the you, but you who's listening knows exactly how this works, because right now, and I don't want to date this podcast, it's an evergreen podcast, but during times of elections, right? During election times, you know what it's like when you drive down the street and you just see a big sign up that says, yes on 27, or Vote for Todd. He's the best. Now, if you only see that once, when you actually stand there in the polling booth doing your thing, you're that's thing. But if you see somebody's name often enough, and you're not really sure actually what they stand for, and I think, oh yeah, that guy's pretty famous. Yeah, and I know that guy. I'll check that box. That's just familiarity. All you're doing is breeding familiarity. And by the way, as ghastly as politics are, I'm not trying to create a parallel between that and what you do online. People won't think of you as a politician. Trust me on that. But you can use the same power of breeding familiarity by repetitively showing up when people are there wanting to find out about, or even accidentally discovering real estate online. As long as your messaging is relevant to them and you have different kinds of messaging, it will resonate, and eventually they will check that box. And online, what that means is come to your website.
Okay. Yeah. That's really powerful stuff. And you mentioned like how you track a lot, what's happening with social media. Do you have a certain tool that you typically recommend for, automating and tracking all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So number one is Google Analytics. Google Analytics is it. It is of labyrinthine complexity. Yeah. However, just say that straight off the bat.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But there are some basic tricks. I mean, it's just actually Google Analytics. You plug that in and you install that on your website, and then log on. It's quite wonderful because you'll send out an email blast. And you'll see how many people are actually looking at your website right now. And you can see what pages they're on and what pages they go to, from this page to that page to another page. And it is very, very complicated and very, very dense, but incredibly powerful as well. But Google Analytics is the primary driver for most everything.
Okay. And then what about like with the social media stuff, like
where a post came from? So there's a couple ways to do that. Again, we are diving deep into into the weeds of technicality, but I'll tell you exactly how it works. So there are a couple ways of doing that. First of all, Google Analytics will tell you where your traffic's coming from. So they know if it's coming from LinkedIn, Facebook, a kind of a high level, this traffic's coming from LinkedIn, right? And you can see to a 1/10 of a percentage point, probably deeper, even if you really wanted to, how much traffic is coming from each platform. All right, so that's number one. And that's kind of your vanilla level. But what you can also do is you can put UTM codes, which stands for, as far as I can tell, and I might be wrong, but Urchin Tracking Module. I think it stands for something ridiculous. That's what it says on when I looked it up. So maybe somebody's playing a joke, but UTM codes. You can install a UTM code. And what a UTM code means is, so you put on your website, right? So it might be toddheitner.com. By the way, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Good. Okay. So whatever your .com is, /, and you see this all the time. If you click on a link in an email, pay attention to what the URL says, and you'll see it'll say /, and then UTM, and then there'll be a bunch of code. Mm-hmm. So when you install that now tells Google everything. Where you came from, what campaign you were on, what article you were reading. So for example, on LinkedIn, it might be, I might identify, came from LinkedIn. It was this particular post, and this was the campaign I was running at the time. And then it will aggregate all that data. So I can really drill that. I think you can go to multiple levels. Again, I know just enough to be dangerous. I hire world experts on my team that are wizards at this stuff. But I know you can go even deeper and really find out what's going on. That's basically how it's done.
Okay. Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And so it sounds like your primary means of attracting investors then is social media. Is that right? Like LinkedIn, you said, and Facebook primarily, and then others from there?
There are others. That's the kind of the first stop. Yes. Once you add layers of sophistication, you will start doing search engine optimization. So we do a lot of SEO as well. So SEO also leverages Google. Somebody inputs how do I invest in real estate? And your name shows up, right? That's the gold mine for you. So we do SEO, and then we also do advertising to drive traffic, and we do webinars, and we do PR as well. So once you've got your website up, I can't overstate how important having a good website is. And once you've got your bait plume of content out there driving traffic to your website, then you can start to spend money on marketing, because then you supercharge traffic to your website, and that's how you really juice things up.
Yeah. Okay. And would you typically test things maybe like on social media or something before you start doing paid advertising, just to make sure things convert the way you would expect?
Yeah, you kind of want to have your system. So the investor acquisition system is the foundation for that. You've got to have a website that has content, and then this presence, omnipresence online, where somebody who hears your name, like somebody who hears my name for the first time, what are they going to do, right? What are you going to do? The first thing you do is you run Adam Gower. Maybe you might run Gower Crowd, or you might run Adam Gower Crowd, or something like that on Google, and you'll see. And you might be somebody who likes Twitter, who prefers Twitter, so you might check out Gower Crowd on Twitter, for example, whoever it is. I'm just using Mike as an example, and you will appear. And if you appear, it means that you are everywhere your prospects want you to be. And if you're everywhere that you want them to be, now you can start to build on that relationship by advertising to them, or inviting them to webinars, etc., to really get into the relation, or to deepen the relationship faster.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you're posting those things out there, like, say on social media, or maybe even through paid ads, would you send them to the homepage of your site, or would you send them to more like a landing page where all they can do is put in their name and email kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that it depends. Of course, it depends. So there are, of course, meaning, why would I give you a straight answer is what I mean. It depends on what kind of campaign you're running. So for example, if you are trying to capture leads and you have a giveaway, for example, like a white paper, then you would send them to a landing page where there's a little information, maybe a short video or a blurb about how great this white paper is, and a "where shall I send it, please" box that says first name and email address, right? That you've done on your websites, which I actually think is insightful, but then you take it to brilliant. And that is that the first thing you want to do is just ask for name and email address. You want to keep it as ultra simple as possible. That first time, you want to keep it simple. So you might send somebody to that landing page, or you might drive traffic to your homepage. I have content, sometimes it's not really suited to any of my landing pages. So I will just direct that to the homepage. Alternatively, if you are posting articles on your website and you have a sentence or two on social media that is a teaser for the article, you might say, read more here. And that redirects them to the article page, which is also a landing page. Basically, every page on your website is a landing page because people land on it. They just have different kinds of functionality. And importantly, if you do have articles, you also want to have lead generation forms embedded in that. You never want to have any page that doesn't say somewhere nicely, give me your name and email address in return for something like join the newsletter or whatever it is. So everything serves as lead gen.
Yeah. Okay, great. And one thing I noticed you talk about in your process or your system is repurposing content. And can you tell us kind of what that means and why you do that, or how you do it?
Absolutely, it's my favorite thing. And so the same idea that you're taking your pitch and creating a video so that people can watch it, 1,000 people can watch it, you only have to say it once, or more than 1,000, obviously, over time. The same can be done with that content. It's what I call content factoring. And that's where, for example, we would take this podcast that you and I are doing, and we might create, how long have we been talking? 40 minutes or so, however long it is, 40 minutes. Let's say we go for an hour for argument's sake. So from an hour that runs, let's see. So we could probably get 2 or 3 written articles out of that from the transcript. We'll create short videos, really short videos. We might get 12, 15. out of an hour, or up to 12, let's say 10 of those. Then we'll also go through and have a look at anything that was said, that was wise and wonderful. It's very rare for me to say anything. It's usually just my guests that say anything halfway intelligent. And we'll take a quote from them and we'll create an image for social media. And from an hour conversation, we can get at least 10 of those. So from an hour conversation, an hour video recorded podcast, we can get 10 videos, 10 quotes, 2 articles. That's almost 24 pieces of content. Now, if you're doing this once a week, right, that's 100 pieces of content a month, 600 in 6 months. That's how I've got to 3,500 pieces of content out there. And every single week we add more and more. And the more of that you have, the bigger your bait plume becomes on social media, and the more people see you and start navigating towards you, gravitating towards you, I should say.
Okay, so you put all those different pieces out there on social media, and then each one of those is a potential, somebody could click back to your site and maybe go to, would you send them to an article or the full video, or what do you typically do?
Yeah, again, so it really depends. I mean, I do give some thought to what I'm going to direct them to. I like to have a bit of a mix. Some of the quotes suit very well. So I have landing pages, right? That are lead generation landing pages. It might be to sell my new book, or it might be to watch the whiteboard workshop, right? Those are strictly landing pages. Give me your name and email address. I'm going to give you something really cool. So some of those, if what's in the video or what's in the quote or what's in the article, if it makes sense, I'll send them to those lead generation pages. If I can't figure out what I'm going to send them to, I'll just go straight to the homepage. If it's an article, quote from an article, and I really want to promote that article, then I'll send them to that article. So for me, it varies. There's so much. I have so much stuff out there. I'm orienting more, actually, Todd, to sending people to landing pages, lead gen landing pages, because what I want is to grab names and email addresses as fast as possible. That's what anyone listening will want to do as well, because as soon as you've got that, now you can engage them with auto email systems, and you can really develop a relationship a lot faster that way.
Yeah, that's true. You can start building that up because you have more control over that process rather than just happening to see some other piece of content you put out down the road and coming back. Yeah,
exactly.
And so then let's say with a potential investor, like a passive investor, like once they sign up for something, typically in that process, like how long in that series of emails, for example, before you start kind of pushing them toward taking that next step of investing? Like, is that something you do right away, or do you wait a few emails in, or?
Yeah, I love that. So it really depends. Another nice, precise answer for you. Here's what I would say. First of all, rule number 1, don't wait to build an investor acquisition system until you need the money. Because if you do that, you will not raise anything. This is a long game. However, once you build it, they will come. Right? It's as simple as that. And they keep on coming. I'll tell you something I've discovered, Todd. Don't let me forget your question. You asked me when to ask them to invest. Let me get back to that. I will tell you something. When I first discovered digital marketing, a lot of the big hypey salesy stuff was earn money while you sleep. Earn money from the beach, live a life of total freedom, because money will flood in through the doors right all the time. Well, you know what? When you raise money, I tell you what I've discovered. It's true, but there's no freedom. You know why? Because your big leads come when you least expect them to. There's no control over that. That's the crazy thing. Right? At least in the in-person world, you can book a time to talk to somebody, and you can choose when you're going to interact with them, even though it's much more laborious. With this system, Sunday morning, I get a thing and somebody's wants to talk to me now because they want to become a client. I better get back to them right now. You go on holiday, that flow never stops. It just never stops. It's like you can't turn the machine off once it starts. It's a whole different story. It's a bit hamster wheelie. I mean, in a good way, it's like I have to pay tax, okay, well, it could be worse. You might not have to pay tax, and that means you've got no income, right? So, right. So there's kind of plus and minus. But back to your question about invest now. So my clients, we have private clients. We build this for clients, or we can show you how to do it yourself. But our private clients have different experiences. Some will wait months and months and months before we go to invest now. Really, it can be 10 months before we go to an invest now mode. And then you open the floodgates, right? There's all kinds of ways of accelerating the invest now moment as you approach a deadline, basically, right? Fear of missing out, all kinds of psychological triggers that you can, or reactions that you can trigger in that process. So it can take a long time. Having said that, once you build your mousetrap, your website, you've got your website, it's drawing people in and you're educating people about what you're doing. Todd, I've seen people, we've had clients who have raised money through Facebook advertising in days. It's insane. It's like, to me, incredible. Somebody on Facebook, I've got my phone, for anyone just listening, I want my phone up as a prop, scanning through Facebook, right? They're going through their feed, looking for happy cat videos or funny cat videos, see an ad that says, invest now in this great deal. They click on that. And a few days later, because you've got an amazing website that's educating them on who you are, what you are, everything about you, they'll wire you tens of thousands of dollars with no contact, no actual direct contact with you by phone, even by email. They'll just go through your funnel, your invest now funnel, and invest immediately. So it can work both ways. But don't ask anyone to invest now until you've educated them on who you are, and it will be a lot easier to close the deal when you've done that.
Yeah, there's a lot more resistance if they don't know anything about you. They don't, like you were saying, like that, no, like, and trust. They really don't have that, and so that resistance is a lot higher. Yeah. Okay. And the point you made about the about how it comes when you least expect it, I think that's, like you said, it's sort of like a blessing and a curse, because yeah, maybe it's not always convenient, but on the other hand, like, it's at that point in the person's, in their journey, when they are ready, you're available to them. So I think that's a really powerful thing to have that opportunity for them to be able to act on that, when they're at that point.
Yeah. And you can also, when I have prospects, high private client prospects, people that I really want to work with, and I'm being kind of weird about it or anything. I mean, we have criteria. Let's just put it that way, right? We don't work with everybody on the private client side. So when somebody comes through, my policy is respond immediately. Just get on them absolutely immediately. Now, there's no reason why you could not have when somebody reaches out to you, you can automate the response and say, hey, thanks so much for, getting back to me. I'll get back to you within 48 hours, right? You can, as long as you communicate. And I noticed you might be anticipating this question coming up, and I hope you ask it because it's one of the most important. I want to preempt it, but you asked something about, I think in the questions you sent, do you communicate with somebody after they've invested?
Yeah, that's a good.
So,
yeah, tell us about that.
So the answer to that, which is the same as, look, if you've got a whale on the line, right, a big investor, don't wait. Get them right now. The second they show up on your radar because they've contacted, because they've said, I want to invest and this is what I've got, jump on it. That's kind of the curse of the online world, is that you're now reactive to that, but for good reasons, right?
Right.
The answer to your question, do you communicate after they've invested, is a humongous YES on your screen. Absolutely yes. Because why? First of all, you got an investor. Secondly, you want them to be happy so that they talk to other people and introduce you to other people. Plus, the lifetime value of that person is massive. Getting someone to invest the first time is time consuming and expensive. Even with these systems, it's expensive. You got to build the thing out. You got to have patience. That's the time. Once it's in place, though, it kind of works. It does work on autopilot, but there's still a lot of effort. And if you advertise, you're going to be spending money to get people into your funnel. So there is a cost, but the lifetime value, somebody might invest 5,000 today. In your next deal, they might invest 50. In the next one, they might invest 100,000. And then over the course of their life with you, they could invest millions of dollars with you. And the single most important thing for you with investors is communication. It's as important. And this is why actually the investor acquisition system works perfectly well, because as you communicate with prospects, you're also incidentally communicating with existing investors at the same time. They're seeing you on social media. They're seeing articles. They're clicking on the articles. They're not filling out forms because they don't need to. They're already getting your newsletters. They're already getting your emails. But it reinforces that, and it helps to continue that nurturing process so that when you come to ask an existing investor to invest again, they've heard from you frequently. They know that you're there. You're not taking an investment 12 months later, right? Popping up, asking for more money again, right? You're in front of them all the time.
Yeah, you're kind of keeping that relationship alive then essentially, right? You're just kind of keeping it alive and keeping it in front of them so that when they're ready to invest again, you're the one that they're going to think of to invest with.
Yeah, and it's more than, Todd, it's more than just keeping the relationship alive. You're building on that relationship. Everything that you send out adds to the relationship. It deepens the relationship with your prospects and your existing investors.
Yeah, great. Well, that's really powerful stuff. I really appreciate you sharing that. We got dug deep into some of those topics. So can you tell us a little, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you? I know you mentioned the gowercrowd.com/waterfall, and that's where they can find out about what kind of a lot of what we're talking about today. Is there anything else you'd recommend for?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Yes, actually there is. So I just published a new book. Actually, I managed to publish 2 books last week, but the one that I would point you towards is the one that's on the screen now. It's called Syndicate. And if you go to gowercrowd.com, the reason that I've got this natty bright red shirt on today is that all my CTAs, all my please learn mores are the same color, so you can't miss it, peppering the website. So click on that and go to Syndicate. Find out more about that book. It is really all the secrets that in detail, actually, that we've been just touching the surface with now. Plus, there's also, it's a book, it's an actual book. And then there is a free training that comes with it as well, where I walk you through the whole system. It's very, very detailed, very advanced, but you'll learn a lot from it for sure. Guaranteed. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for coming on, and really appreciate you sharing all those insights today. Really valuable stuff. So thanks so much.
Yeah, really a great pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
When people are at a point that they like and trust you enough, they will want to move forward to invest with you. So you should make this process as easy as possible. But to get there, you need to keep filling your funnel with potential investors. This guide to filling up your funnel is full of valuable resources like how to put your investor acquisition on autopilot with digital marketing, how to know which platforms to post your content on for finding investors, and what type of content should you post on social media. Download your copy for free here at apartmentinvestorpro.com/funnel. That's apartmentinvestorpro.com/funnel. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Apartment Investor Pro podcast. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Also, visit our website at apartmentinvestorpro.com and connect with us.